Next question here. This is from Death Star 168. The question here was, what do we buy instead of bonds in order to protect gains? This was in response to a video where I talked about bonds being a potentially bad investment in retirement. Obviously, that's not advice. That's not a guarantee. I mean, there are purposes behind bonds, but I think one of the messages I was trying to send in that video is we should take a balanced view of everything, that the simple way that things are portrayed to us are oftentimes not useful, and they will limit our ability to make good decisions. And if we want to make good decisions in retirement, then we should understand things with the natural laws that exist around us, which are that they're complicated and there are trade-offs. So if bonds are not protecting a retirement portfolio, what should retirees use instead? Now, bonds don't necessarily not protect a retirement portfolio. The problem is misunderstanding of the different types of bonds leads to the illusion that bonds protect a retirement portfolio. So let me explain what I mean, and then I'll try to answer your direct question. I can't give a recommendation of what you should buy because that would not be safe, honest, ethical, compliant of me, but I can explain the framework. Bonds are a category of investment. We are taught to think of bonds as safe when compared to stocks. The problem is there's a lot of types of bonds, and we know this intuitively. We just don't think about it. I don't know why we don't think about it consciously. We have U.S. Treasuries, which are 1 to 6 month or 1 month to a year long loans to the U.S. government, which are federally backed. We have the power of the Federal Reserve. They're essentially a pretty much risk-free investment, or that's what they're called. I'm not saying they're risk-free. I mean, obviously there's opinions about that, but the point is very low risk potentially. And then we have corporate bonds, which are bonds that companies issue that we can buy and give a loan to the company and they'll pay us back over a stated period of time. And then there are junk bonds, and there are municipal bonds, and there are teeny tiny municipality bonds. And there's like an endless list of types of bonds. There are commercialized. There's just like all sorts of interesting, weird derivative stuff that get tucked under the bond umbrella as well. Mortgage-backed securities and all sorts of stuff that we don't see. When you look at an asset allocation and it says you are holding 40% bonds, like the question I want to know is like, how much of that is really truly safe, secure bonds, and how much of that is junk bonds, high yield bonds, commercial mortgage-backed securities that are held within these ETFs that are portrayed as bonds. So I guess what I'm trying to lead towards here is bonds can be very risky, right? A bond, for instance, a high yield bond, for instance, the price of the bond itself could move just as much as a stock. In fact, TLT, which is the 10-year US Treasury ETF that follows the 10-year US Treasury, in 2022, when interest rates substantially rose, the price of that ETF cut by almost 70% over less than a year. I mean, is that a safe bond? Is that a risky? I mean, it depends. The point is it's relative, but the point is if someone had asked you, do you think your bonds could go down by 70%? And if you had chosen to buy TLT, or an advisor had invested a significant amount into TLT or an equivalent 10-year plus US Treasury fund, you might have seen a 70% reduction in that position. And if it was a substantial position in your portfolio, which I have seen, then it would be a substantial drawdown. And we would have said, well, what the heck am I doing in these bonds? They didn't do the job that they were advertised. The point being here is you have to be discerning, and it's about choosing the right things. And choosing the right things, again, comes back to the core principle that I'm noticing as a through line of this longer series of questions, which is we need to educate ourselves. We need better diagnostic tools to understand what's really going on under the hood so that we can make better decisions. And ultimately, your question, Death Star, of what do we buy instead of bonds then in order to protect gains is the question really isn't what do we buy instead of bonds. It's how do we protect gains? Does that make sense? We can do that in a variety of ways. It could include bonds. It could include low beta stocks. It could include high yield savings accounts. Or there's a lot of tools, but we need to understand the tools and the trade-offs. Every tool has the trade-off, and we need to understand the trade-off. And when we say protect gains, we need to understand the trade-off we're willing to accept in order to protect those gains. That's at a principles level how to think about this. Great question. Way more than you bargained for, but I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you for the question, Death Star. Real quick, let me show you the exact 3-pillar comprehensive retirement roadmap that takes retirees from uncertainty to peace of mind that less than 1% of retirees actually have in place. Now, I've built hundreds of these for retirees,
And I can say with a high degree of confidence that these are the 3 pillars every retiree needs to have in place in order to have full confidence that they're not missing anything in their retirement plan. And I broke each of these down by the specific questions. You can see them here that each needs to be answered and the best way to answer them. Now, we've done this across pre-retirees, recent retirees, married couples, single retirees, $1 million portfolios, $10 million portfolios, all the above, and it works. And it's my gift to you today. It's absolutely free. It's in the first link in the description below this video. It's going to say free comprehensive retirement roadmap training. Just click the link, enter your info, and you'll get instant access all for free.